Sarah stood in the center of the great chamber, her hands bound behind her back. The Galactic Council's tribunal hall stretched out before her like a massive cathedral made of crystal and light. Thousands of alien beings filled the floating platforms that circled the room in perfect spirals. Each platform held representatives from different worlds, different species, all watching her with eyes that showed no mercy. The ethereal hierarchy sat on the highest platform. Their bodies looked like tall shadows wrapped in silver robes. They had no faces that Sarah could see, just darkness where a head should be. But she could feel their attention on her light cold fingers touching her skin. Ambassador had served Earth for 20 years. She had traveled to dozens of worlds, made peace between warring species, and helped build trade agreements that benefited everyone. But none of that mattered now. Today, she stood accused of crimes against the Galactic Order. Ambassador Sarah of the human species, the lead ethereal, spoke. Its voice echoed through the chamber without any sound, appearing directly in everyone's mind. You stand accused of primitive aggression against the people. How do you answer? Sarah lifted her chin. I protected innocent refugees from raiders who were killing children. If that is a crime in your eyes, then your justice system is broken. A ripple of anger moved through the crowd. Many species in the galaxy believed humans were too young, too violent, too primitive to have a real voice in galactic affairs. Earth had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. In galactic terms, that was yesterday. The representative stood on his platform. His species looked like giant lizards with too many teeth. The human attacked our rightful salvage operation. Those refugees were trespassing on our territory. We had every right to remove them. You were murdering families, Sarah said. Your ships were firing on escape pods filled with children. That is irrelevant, the ethereal said. They acted within their territorial rights. You exceeded your authority as a diplomat by engaging in military action. Sarah remembered that day clearly. The distress call had come in while her ship was conducting a routine diplomatic mission. A refugee convoy carrying survivors from a War III systems away had broken down in space. Instead of offering help, raiders had surrounded them, demanding everything valuable in exchange for safe passage. When the refugees refused, the raiders started shooting. Sarah's escort ship had minimal weapons, but she ordered them to protect the escape pods. They managed to drive off the raiders and save over 3,000 lives. To Sarah, it was the only choice a decent person could make. To the Galactic Council, it was an act of war. The evidence is clear, another council member announced. This one belonged to the collective, a species that looked like floating jellyfish made of light. The human violated the territorial sovereignty of a council member species. Such actions cannot be tolerated. Even to save innocent lives, Sarah asked. Especially to save innocent lives, the ethereal replied. Your species shows the same dangerous tendency toward emotional decision-making that led to your global wars. This is exactly why younger species must learn their place in the galactic order. Sarah looked around the chamber. She saw fear in some faces, satisfaction in others, but very little compassion. The galaxy had been ruled by the same species for thousands of years. They had created a system where order mattered more than justice, where following rules was more important than doing the right thing. You want to execute me to send a message, she said, to show other, younger species what happens when they don't obey. You understand correctly, the ethereal said. Your death will serve as an example that the established order must be maintained. The trial continued for 3 more hours, but everyone knew how it would end. Sarah was allowed to present her evidence, to show recordings of ships firing on civilian vessels, to play the desperate calls for help from refugee families. None of it mattered. The council had made their decision before the trial began. When the final vote came, it was overwhelming. Guilty of primitive aggression, guilty of violating territorial sovereignty, guilty of threatening galactic stability. The sentence was death by dissolution, a method that would completely destroy her body at the molecular level. As the guards prepared the dissolution chamber, Sarah was allowed one final statement. She looked up at the council members, then directly into the recording devices that would broadcast her words across the galaxy. "I want to say something to my people on Earth," she said. Her voice was steady, showing no fear. "To my government, to my family, to everyone who believes that protecting innocent lives is worth any cost." She paused, making sure her words would be recorded clearly. "Protocol 7, she said, "they chose this." The ethereal leader made a dismissive gesture. "Random words from a dying primitive. Proceed with the execution." The energy beam struck Sarah instantly. Her body dissolved into light, leaving only empty space where she had stood. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the council members began discussing their next agenda item as if nothing important had happened. But Sarah's final words were already racing across space toward Earth, carried by quantum communication arrays that could cross the galaxy in minutes. In the deep command bunkers beneath Earth's surface, military leaders received the transmission and understood its meaning. Admiral Helena sat in the primary command center, watching the recording of Sarah's execution for the third time. Around her, screens showed activity reports from across the Sol system as hidden installations came online. "Protocol 7 confirmed," she announced to the room. "All units, this is not a drill. The extermination protocol is now active." Across the chamber, officers began entering authorization codes that had been locked away for decades. Space-based weapons platforms that had masqueraded as mining stations started powering their main batteries. Ships that looked like civilian cargo haulers began dropping their false hulls to reveal the warships hidden underneath. "Admiral," her aide said, "estimated time to full deployment." Looked at the tactical display showing human assets throughout the galaxy. Red dots appeared on the map as sleeper agents confirmed their positions. Blue markers showed the locations of hidden weapons caches and supply depots that had been placed over years of careful planning. 72 hours, she said. "Send a message to all commands. Tell them Ambassador has been avenged, but this is just the beginning. The galaxy wanted to see what happens when they murder our diplomats." She turned to face the main screen, which showed the Galactic Council chamber where Sarah had died. "Now they're going to learn why humans don't make idle threats." The ethereal hierarchy gathered in their private council chamber, a room of pure white light that existed in a dimension slightly removed from normal space. They communicated without words, sharing thoughts and images directly between their minds. The execution of the human ambassador had been necessary, they agreed, but now they needed to plan for Earth's response. "The humans will protest through diplomatic channels," one ethereal predicted. "They may threaten trade sanctions or demand reparations." "Their military is primitive," another added. "Chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They pose no real threat to established galactic powers." "We should prepare for emotional outbursts," a third suggested. "Humans are known for their unstable emotional responses. They may attempt some symbolic gesture of defiance." The ethereals had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. In that time, they had seen hundreds of young species join the galactic community. The pattern was always the same: initial excitement, then growing frustration with galactic politics, followed by acceptance of their place in the established order. Sometimes a species would resist, but they always learned to obey eventually. Humans were no different. They were actually weaker than most new species, having barely developed faster-than-light travel. Their ships were small and slow compared to proper galactic vessels. Their weapons were laughably primitive. The idea that they could threaten anyone was amusing. But while the ethereals debated human psychology, something very different was happening in the Sol system. At asteroid mining station Gamma 7, located in the belt between Mars and Jupiter, Supervisor Torres received a coded transmission that made her heart race. She had been waiting for this message for 15 years, ever since she had volunteered for the deep cover assignment. "All hands, this is not a drill," she announced over the station's communication system. "Initiate Protocol 7 immediately." The mining crews moved with practiced efficiency, but they weren't preparing to mine asteroids. Hidden panels opened across the massive station, revealing weapon systems that had been built into the structure from the beginning. What the galaxy thought was a simple mining operation was actually the largest weapons platform ever constructed by humanity. The asteroid that Station Gamma 7 was built around wasn't a rock at all. It was a hollow shell filled with enough firepower to level entire worlds, and it wasn't alone. Across the Sol system, similar transformations were taking place. Scientific research stations near Saturn's rings dropped their disguises to reveal massive shipyards. Civilian cargo haulers orbiting Earth split open like flower buds, showing the warships hidden inside their hulls. Communications satellites suddenly started broadcasting on military frequencies that shouldn't have existed. Admiral watched the activation reports stream in from her command center. Each confirmation brought a smile to her face. Humanity had learned a hard lesson from their own history. Never trust your survival to the goodwill of others. "Status report," she ordered. "Battle Group Alpha is fully deployed," her tactical officer reported. 12 heavy cruisers, 48 destroyers, and supporting vessels. All ships are showing green across the board. "What about the deep space assets?" "Stealth platforms Echo through Romeo are in position throughout Council space. They've been there for 8 years, running silent, ready to activate on your command." Admiral nodded. The galaxy thought humans had been exploring space for trade and diplomacy. They were wrong. For decades, humanity had been conducting the largest intelligence and military preparation operation in galactic history. Meanwhile, on the trade world of Nexus Prime, a human merchant named David Park received a different kind of message. He had been selling Earth goods and gathering information for 12 years, building relationships with alien traders and government officials. To everyone who knew him, he was just another businessman trying to make a living in the galaxy. They had no idea he was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence operatives. David activated his secure communicator and began sending status reports on Nexus Prime's defenses, trade routes, and political situation. Similar reports were coming in from hundreds of other human merchants scattered across Council space. The galaxy had welcomed human traders, thinking they were harmless. Earth's government had encouraged this belief, sending out people who seemed like ordinary citizens looking for business opportunities. In reality, every human trader, diplomat, scientist, and tourist outside Sol system was part of a vast intelligence network that had been mapping galactic civilization for 50 years. On the collective, Dr. Maria Santos finished her daily research report and sent it through normal channels to Earth's scientific community. Then she activated a hidden transmitter and sent a very different report to military intelligence. Maria had spent 5 years studying biology and technology as part of an academic exchange program. They believed she was learning from them, sharing human scientific knowledge in return for access to their advanced laboratories. They never suspected that her real mission was to find weaknesses in their planetary defense systems. Similar operations were running on every major Council world. Human scientists studied alien technology and found ways to counter it. Human diplomats learned the political weaknesses of different species. Human tourists mapped military installations and recorded defensive patterns. The galaxy had seen exactly what Earth wanted them to see: a young, primitive species eager to join galactic civilization. The truth was far more dangerous. In the depths of space, between the outer planets of the Sol system, something massive began to move. The object was 10 kilometers long and had been hidden behind a camouflage field that made it invisible to all known scanning methods. To any observer, this region of space appeared completely empty. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of humanity's most closely guarded secret, the dreadnought Prometheus. It was the first of 12 identical ships, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. The galaxy's intelligence services had never detected them because they had been built using technology that Earth officially didn't possess. "Captain, we're receiving deployment orders," her communications officer reported. "Understood, set course for the system, maximum stealth approach." The Prometheus engaged its revolutionary drive system, technology that Earth's scientists had developed by studying captured alien vessels and improving on their designs. The ship could travel faster than anything the Council possessed, while remaining completely undetectable. As the massive ship moved toward its target, Captain Mitchell reviewed the mission parameters. They would be the first to experience humanity's true capabilities. It would serve as a message to the entire galaxy about what happened when Earth's diplomats were murdered. Back in the Council chamber, the ethereal hierarchy was receiving their first disturbing reports. Galactic intelligence services were detecting unusual energy signatures from the Sol system. Human ships were moving in coordinated patterns that suggested military organization far beyond their supposed capabilities. "This cannot be correct," one ethereal transmitted to the others. "Our assessments show human technology is decades behind galactic standards." "Perhaps our intelligence was incomplete," another replied with the mental equivalent of unease. The third ethereal focused on the tactical reports flowing in from Council monitoring stations. Human vessels were showing energy outputs that should have been impossible with their primitive technology. Ship designs that looked civilian were revealing themselves to have military capabilities that rivaled Council warships. "Send a priority message to all Council fleets," the lead ethereal ordered. "We may have underestimated the human military capacity, increased security around strategic installations." But it was already too late. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth had been playing a much longer, much more sophisticated game than anyone had imagined. The execution of Ambassador hadn't awakened a sleeping giant. It had triggered a trap that had been 50 years in the making. In 72 hours, the system would go dark, and the galaxy would understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The OV Prime had been the center of their empire for over 3,000 years. The planet was a fortress, protected by energy shields that could withstand supernova-level explosions, and defended by the largest military fleet in Council space. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the world in perfect geometric patterns, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the routine patrol patterns of his fleet. As the supreme military commander of forces, he had turned there into the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. Nothing could approach Prime without being detected days in advance. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Galactic Command," his communications officer reported. The young scales showed the dark green color that indicated nervousness. "What do they want now?" asked, not looking away from his tactical displays. "They're warning all Council fleets about possible human military activity. They want us to increase security protocols." His throat sac inflated with amusement, making a sound like rough laughter. "Human military activity. What are they going to do, throw rocks at us?" The bridge crew joined in his laughter. Everyone knew humans had the weakest military in galactic space. Their ships were slow, their weapons were primitive, and their total fleet could fit inside a single battleship's hangar bay. "Send a reply to Galactic Command," ordered. "Tell them Prime is secure. If the humans want to come here and complain about the execution of their ambassador, they're welcome to try." He settled back into his command chair, confident that nothing could threaten his world. The orbital defense grid could detect any approaching ship from light years away. The planetary shields had never been breached. The fleet was the pride of the Council's military forces. Had no way of knowing that high above his planet, invisible and undetectable, the human dreadnought Prometheus had been waiting for 67 hours. Captain Mitchell studied the tactical displays showing defense positions. Her ship's advanced sensors could map every defensive installation, every patrol route, every weakness in their seemingly perfect security. They had built their defenses to stop attacks using known galactic technology. They had no defenses against weapons that officially didn't exist. "Status report," Captain Mitchell ordered. "All systems ready, Captain," her tactical officer replied. "Phase cannon batteries are charged and targeted. Quantum torpedoes are loaded and programmed. Stealth field is holding at 100% efficiency." "What about civilian populations?" "Scanners show approximately 12 billion on the surface, mostly concentrated in the major cities. The weapon parameters are set for precision targeting. Only military and government installations will be affected." Captain Mitchell nodded. Earth's military doctrine was clear. Civilian populations were never legitimate targets. The human goal wasn't genocide. It was to send a message so terrifying that other council species would think twice before harming another human diplomat. "Begin the operation," she ordered. The attack started with the orbital defense platforms. From the outside, nothing appeared to happen. The massive weapon stations continued their slow rotation around the planet, their energy shields glowing with steady power, their crews monitoring space for any signs of threat. Then, one by one, they simply stopped working. Admiral was reviewing supply reports when his tactical officer called out in alarm. "Sir, we're losing contact with Defense Platform 7. "Equipment malfunction?" asked. "No, sir, the platform is gone. It just disappeared from our sensors." Before could respond, more reports flooded in. Defense Platform 12 had vanished, then Platform 4, then Platform 19. In the space of 10 minutes, every single orbital defense installation around Prime had been eliminated without sending a single distress signal. "This is impossible," roared. "Nothing could penetrate our detection grid without us seeing it." "Sir, we're detecting massive power fluctuations from the planetary surface," his sensor operator reported. The young scales had turned white with terror. Every military command center, every government building, every weapons facility, they're all going dark. Down on the surface of Prime, General Vex was conducting a staff meeting when the lights went out. Emergency power should have activated immediately, but it didn't. The command center's massive displays went blank. Communication systems failed. Even the simple door controls stopped responding. "What's happening?" General Vex demanded. "We don't know, sir," one of his aides replied. "Every system in the building just shut down at exactly the same time." General Vex tried to activate his personal communicator, but it was dead. He ordered his staff to check the manual systems, but those had failed too. Somehow, every piece of technology in the entire military complex had stopped working simultaneously. The same thing was happening at government buildings across the planet. Presidents, military commanders, intelligence chiefs, and security officials found themselves cut off from all communication, all transportation, all access to their normal command systems. They were trapped in their own facilities, unable to coordinate any kind of response. But civilian areas remained completely untouched. Power still flowed to homes and businesses. Personal communicators worked normally. Transportation systems continued operating. Only military and government targets had been affected, with surgical precision that seemed impossible. In space, Admiral watched his fleet's sensors as they tried to make sense of what was happening. Every defensive installation around there had been destroyed or disabled, but their ships had detected no weapons fire, no energy discharges, no signs of any attacking force. "Sir, incoming transmission from Galactic Command," his communications officer announced. Finally said, "Put them through." But the voice that came through the speakers wasn't from Galactic Command. It was human, speaking in heavily accented Galactic Standard. "Attention forces. This is Captain Mitchell of the Earth Navy vessel Prometheus. Your military capabilities have been neutralized. Repeat, Prime is now defenseless." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the communication console as if it had started speaking in tongues. "This is Admiral of the Defense Force," he finally managed to say. "I don't know what kind of trick you're using, but this planet is protected by the strongest defenses in the galaxy." "Your defenses no longer exist," Captain Mitchell replied calmly. "Check your sensors." Did check. The tactical display that should have shown hundreds of defense platforms now showed empty space. The status board that should have been green with active installations was completely red. Every single defensive position around his had been eliminated in less than 20 minutes, without his fleet detecting a single enemy vessel. "How," he whispered. "The people you murdered on that refugee convoy included 17 children," Captain Mitchell said. "Ambassador died defending them from your raiders. This is the consequence of that action." The transmission continued with coordinates and technical data that made blood freeze. The humans knew the exact location of every secret military installation on Prime. They knew the command codes for his fleet's communication systems. They knew details about military capabilities that were classified at the highest levels. "You have 36 hours to evacuate all military and government personnel from your," Captain Mitchell announced. "After that time, any military targets remaining on the surface will be permanently eliminated." "This is impossible," said. "Our intelligence services said humans have primitive technology. Your fastest ships would take weeks to reach this system." "Your intelligence services were wrong about many things," Captain Mitchell replied. "You have 35 hours and 58 minutes. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge's flagship in shocked silence. Around Prime, the most powerful fleet in Council space searched desperately for any sign of the human ship that had just destroyed their defenses. Their sensors found nothing. The Prometheus remained completely invisible, a ghost ship that could strike at will and disappear without a trace. 36 hours later, just as Captain Mitchell had promised, every remaining military installation on Prime simply ceased to exist. Weapons factories, command bunkers, training facilities, research laboratories, all of them were reduced to empty craters with surgical precision. The planet's 12 billion civilian inhabitants were completely unharmed, but their government and military had effectively ceased to exist. Prime, the fortress world that had never been conquered, was now defenseless and leaderless. A single message began broadcasting on all frequencies across the planet and throughout space. "The fate of those who harm innocents under our protection." News of Prime's fall reached the Galactic Council within hours, transmitted by panicked refugees. The reports seemed impossible to believe. A human force had somehow traveled across the galaxy in 3 days, penetrated the strongest defenses known to galactic civilization, and eliminated an entire planetary military complex without being detected. The ethereal hierarchy called an emergency session, demanding explanations that no one could provide. How had humans developed such advanced technology without anyone noticing? How had they moved ships across galactic space so quickly? How had they identified and targeted military installations with such incredible precision? The questions, but answers remained elusive. The galaxy was beginning to realize that they knew nothing about humanity's true capabilities. And somewhere in the depths of space, 11 more human dreadnoughts were moving toward their targets. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a state of panic that none of them had experienced in centuries. Representatives from 43 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices creating a chaotic mix of fear, anger, and confusion. The news from Prime had shattered their understanding of galactic military balance. High Counselor of the Collective floated above his platform, his translucent body pulsing with agitated light patterns. This cannot be allowed to continue. The humans have committed an act of unprovoked aggression against a council member world. Unprovoked, the voice came from the upper gallery, where a small group of humans sat in the observer section. Ambassador Torres, Sarah's replacement, stood to address the council. "You executed our diplomat for protecting refugees from your raiders. What did you expect would happen?" The ethereal leader's mental voice cut through the noise. "The human response is disproportionate and primitive. You have attacked a defended world without declaration of war." "We declared war when you murdered Ambassador," Torres replied calmly. "You chose to ignore it." Before anyone could respond, alerts began flashing throughout the chamber. Emergency communications were coming in from across council space. High Counselor received the first report, and his light patterns shifted to deep purple, the color of absolute terror. "The military command station at Nexus 7 has gone dark," he announced. "All communication has been lost." More reports followed rapidly. The ethereal shipyards in the Spiral Nebula had stopped transmitting. 3 fleet bases reported total system failures before their signals cut out. The Mantid research facility on Hive 14 had simply vanished from all sensors. In less than 2 hours, 17 major military installations across Council space had been eliminated. No battles, no distress calls, no survivors. They simply stopped existing, leaving behind empty coordinates and terrified questions. Admiral, who had escaped from Prime with what remained of his fleet, transmitted a desperate warning to the council chamber. His image appeared on the main display, his scales showing the pale colors of exhaustion and defeat. "They're not fighting like any species we know," he reported. "Their ships appear from nowhere, strike with impossible precision, then vanish without a trace. Our weapons can't lock onto them. Our sensors can't track them. It's like fighting ghosts." The council demanded explanations, but their military commanders had none to give. Human forces were operating with technology and tactics that shouldn't exist. They struck at strategic targets across the galaxy simultaneously, suggesting coordination capabilities that known physics. On the mining world of 9, Colonel Martinez watched through his binoculars as a Mantid supply depot exploded in the distance. He had been posing as a human geologist for 3 years, studying mineral deposits while secretly mapping Mantid military installations. Now his real mission was beginning. "Package delivered," he reported into his concealed transmitter. "Target eliminated with no collateral damage." Similar reports were coming in from human operatives across the galaxy. People who had seemed like ordinary civilians, traders, scientists, tourists, students, revealed themselves as Earth's military agents. They emerged from years of deep cover to strike at targets that the galaxy's intelligence services didn't even know existed. Dr. Sarah finished placing her last explosive charge in the weapons research facility where she had worked for 2 years. To her alien colleagues, she was a brilliant materials scientist helping develop new alloy technologies. They had no idea she was really demolitions expert who had been mapping their secret laboratories from the inside. "Research facility Omega-7 is ready for demolition," she transmitted. "All personnel have been evacuated. No casualties." The explosion that followed destroyed 30 years of advanced weapons research, but every worker had received anonymous warnings to leave the building. Earth's war was against military and government targets, never civilians. Meanwhile, in deep space, the human fleet was revealing its true scope. Ships that had been disguised as cargo haulers dropped their false hulls, showing themselves as advanced warships. Mining platforms throughout Council space activated hidden weapon systems. Communication satellites began jamming enemy transmissions while coordinating human attacks. Commander Williams stood on the bridge of the destroyer Vengeance, watching as another Mantid patrol was eliminated. The enemy ships had tried to fight back, but their weapons passed harmlessly through his vessel's defensive fields. Human technology had advanced far beyond anything the galaxy understood. "Target destroyed, sir," his tactical officer reported. "No survivors." Williams nodded grimly. The Mantids had been among the loudest voices calling for Ambassador's execution. Now they were learning the cost of that decision. The human strategy was terrifying in its precision. Every species that had voted for death found their military capabilities systematically dismantled. Trade routes that supplied their worlds mysteriously stopped functioning. Communication networks experienced unexplained failures. Supply convoys vanished between star systems. Most disturbing was how much humans knew about galactic civilization. They struck at hidden facilities that only the highest levels of government knew about. They targeted specific commanders who were crucial to military operations. They demonstrated knowledge of defensive systems, patrol schedules, and classified technologies that should have been impossible to obtain. High Admiral of the Navy attempted to organize a coordinated response. He gathered the surviving Council fleets at a secret rendezvous point in neutral space, hoping to mass enough firepower to finally engage the human forces. "All ships, this is Admiral," he broadcast to the assembled fleet. "We have 47 capital ships and supporting vessels. When the humans show themselves, we'll be ready." The humans showed themselves immediately. The attack came from every direction at once. Human ships materialized out of empty space, moving in formations that violated basic principles of fleet tactics. They coordinated their movements with impossible precision, striking at specific weak points in each enemy vessel. Torpedoes passed harmlessly through human shields. Energy beams that should have vaporized armor plating had no effect on human hulls. The Council's most advanced weapons seemed to exist in a different reality from their targets. But human weapons worked perfectly against Council ships. Beams of coherent energy sliced through armor like paper, projectiles that physics tore holes in supposedly impenetrable hulls. In 17 minutes, the largest Council fleet ever assembled was reduced to debris and escape pods. Admiral found himself alone on his flagship's bridge, his crew having evacuated in the last functional escape pod. A human voice came through his communication system. "Admiral, this is Captain of the Earth Navy vessel Retribution." The captain's name was no coincidence. She was Ambassador's younger sister. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your military career is over. This is what happens to those who voted for murder." "How?" asked weakly. "Our intelligence said humans were primitive." "Your intelligence was designed to see what we wanted you to see," Captain replied. "For 50 years, humanity has been studying your species, learning your weaknesses and preparing for this day. Every human you met was gathering information. Every trade deal gave us access to your technology. Every diplomatic mission was a scouting operation." The revelation was staggering. The galaxy's entire relationship with humanity had been based on deception. Earth had presented itself as a young, eager species seeking friendship and trade. In reality, they had been conducting the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. "You planned this from the beginning," realized. "We hoped it would never be necessary," Captain said. "But we learned from our own history to prepare for the worst. When you executed our ambassador for doing the right thing, you triggered protocols that have been in place for decades." Admiral's flagship exploded moments later, but not before emergency transmitters broadcast the entire conversation across Council space. The galaxy now understood that humanity's apparent weakness had been an elaborate deception. They had been infiltrated, studied, and manipulated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Back in the council chamber, the representatives watched reports streaming in from across their space. Every species that had voted for execution was experiencing the same systematic destruction of their military capabilities. Fleets vanished. Bases went dark. Command structures collapsed. The humans weren't conquering territory or demanding surrender. They were simply erasing their enemy's ability to project power, one installation at a time. It was methodical, precise, and terrifyingly effective. "How many of them are there?" High Counselor asked desperately. Ambassador Tor smiled coldly from the observer gallery. "Enough." The hunting season had begun, and humanity was the only predator left in the galaxy. 6 months after the execution of Ambassador Sarah, the Galactic Council building stood empty. The great crystal chamber where representatives had once debated the fate of worlds was now dark and silent. The floating platforms that had held thousands of alien dignitaries drifted aimlessly, their gravitational fields failing from lack of maintenance. The last ethereal leader sat alone in what had once been the supreme command center. The shadow-wrapped being that had ruled galactic civilization for 10,000 years now commanded nothing but ghosts and memories. Every military installation under ethereal control had been destroyed. Every fleet had been eliminated. Every government facility had gone dark. A soft sound made the ethereal turn. Admiral stepped into the chamber, her boots echoing in the vast space. Behind her came a small group of human officers and civilians, their faces showing no triumph, only grim determination. "High Lord," Admiral said, using the ethereal's formal title, "we need to talk." The ancient being's mental voice was weak, barely a whisper in the humans' minds. "You have one. Is that not enough?" "This was never about winning," Admiral replied. "This was about justice." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of galactic civilization. Red zones marked areas where human forces had eliminated military targets. Yellow zones showed regions under human protection. Green zones indicated systems that had never supported the Council's aggressive policies. "Your empire is gone," Admiral said. "They have no fleet left. The Mantids have no weapons. They have no command structure. Every species that voted to execute Ambassador has been neutralized as a military threat." "You could have simply destroyed our world," said. "Why did you spare the civilians?" Captain Martinez, formerly the geologist on 9, stepped forward. "Because we're not like you. We don't murder innocents to make political points." Admiral nodded. "Earth's terms are simple. The old council is dissolved. The system of might makes right is finished. The new galactic government will be based on different principles." She activated another display showing a complex organizational chart. Instead of the hierarchical structure that had dominated the galaxy it showed a network of interconnected regions based on mutual cooperation and protection. "Species that want to participate in galactic civilization will follow basic rules," Admiral explained. "No slavery, no aggressive expansion, no attacks on civilian populations, no execution of diplomats for doing their jobs." Dr. Sarah, who had destroyed the weapons facility, added her voice. "We've spent 50 years learning about every species in the galaxy. We know which ones can be trusted and which ones need constant supervision." High Lord tried to stand, but the effort was too much. The ethereals had never been a physical species, relying on their mental powers and technological superiority to maintain control. Without their vast military machine, they were helpless. "The ethereals will be relocated to a single world under human oversight," Admiral announced. "You'll be provided with everything needed for a comfortable life, but you'll never again have the power to make decisions that affect other species. You would make slaves of us. We would make you irrelevant," Captain said as she entered the chamber. Sarah's sister had requested the honor of delivering the final terms to her sister's killers. You'll live out your existence in peace, but you'll never again have the power to harm innocent beings. The holographic display changed again, showing the new structure of galactic governance. Earth sat at the center, not as conquerors but as protectors. Human fleets would patrol trade routes, ensuring safe passage for all civilian vessels. Human arbitrators would resolve disputes between species. Human intelligence networks would watch for any signs of aggression or oppression. "This is what you taught us," Admiral said to the defeated Ethereal. "You showed us that the galaxy operates on the principle that power determines right. You demonstrated that the strong can do whatever they want to the weak. You proved that justice means nothing without the strength to enforce it." She gestured to the empty chamber around them. "So we became stronger than you, strong enough to impose our version of justice on the galaxy." High Lord's mental voice carried a note of bitter understanding. "You learned our lessons too well." "No," Admiral corrected. "We learned your lessons and chose a different path. You used your strength to dominate and exploit. We're using ours to protect and serve." Captain activated a communication device that connected to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Her image appeared on screens across thousands of star systems, addressing civilian population who had lived in fear of Council oppression for generations. "People of the galaxy," she began, "I am Captain of the Earth Navy. 6 months ago, this Council executed my sister for protecting innocent refugees. Today, that council no longer exists." The communication continued as she explained the new order that humanity was establishing. The old system of imperial domination was finished. In its place would be a confederation based on mutual protection and cooperation. Species that choose to join our confederation will receive protection from aggression, assistance with development, and fair representation in galactic governance, Captain announced. Those who prefer isolation will be left alone, as long as they don't threaten their neighbors. The response from across the galaxy was immediate and overwhelming. Refugee populations that had hidden in the outer systems for centuries began sending messages of support. Slave species on mining worlds started broadcasting requests for liberation. Even some former council species began asking about the terms for joining the new confederation. Doctor pulled up reports showing the transformation already taking place. Human medical teams were providing aid to worlds that had been neglected by the council. Engineering crews were repairing infrastructure damaged by council exploitation. Diplomatic corps were negotiating peaceful solutions to conflicts that had raged for decades. "The system has requested human protection from raiders," she reported. "The colonies want help rebuilding their agricultural systems. 17 former slave worlds are asking for assistance with establishing self-government." Admiral nodded with satisfaction. This was what humanity had been preparing for all along, not conquest, but the responsibility that came with ultimate power. "What about those who resist?" High Lord asked. Captain Martinez answered. "We've identified 37 species that profit from slavery, piracy, or aggressive expansion. They'll be given one chance to reform their societies. If they refuse, they'll be isolated from galactic civilization until they change their minds." "And if isolation isn't enough?" Admiral's expression hardened. "Then they'll discover that humanity's mercy has limits. We didn't eliminate the council fleets to be gentle with slavers and pirates." The transformation of galactic civilization accelerated over the following months. Human engineers shared advanced technology with species that had been held back by council restrictions. Human doctors provided medical aid to populations that had suffered under oppressive regimes. Human teachers helped establish educational systems that promoted cooperation instead of domination. The galaxy learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their advanced technology or their military capabilities. It was their absolute refusal to accept injustice, even when challenging it required a war across the entire galaxy. In the former council chamber, now converted into a memorial for all victims of oppression, Admiral stood before a simple plaque bearing Ambassador Sarah's name. The inscription below read, "She died protecting innocence. We live to ensure her sacrifice was not in vain." Captain joined her at the memorial. "Do you think Sarah would approve of what we've done?" Admiral considered the question carefully. She believed that doing the right thing was worth any cost. The galaxy is safer now. Children can grow up without fear of raiders or slavers. Diplomats can do their jobs without being executed for inconveniencing the powerful. She gestured toward the large viewing window that showed the busy space lanes around the station. Ships from hundreds of different species moved in orderly patterns, protected by human patrol vessels and guided by human traffic controllers. "Sarah died because the old system valued order over justice," Admiral said. "The new system values justice above everything else. I think she would understand why we had to tear down the old order to build something better." As they stood in the memorial chamber, reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Former slave populations were establishing their first democratic governments. Trade routes that had been controlled by pirates were now safe for civilian traffic. Refugee camps were being converted into permanent colonies with human assistance. The galaxy had learned that humanity was indeed a young and emotional species, just as the Council had always claimed. But they had also learned that human emotions included an uncompromising dedication to protecting the innocent and a willingness to fight impossible odds to do what was right. The ethereal hierarchy had ruled for 10,000 years through fear and superior technology. They had been replaced by a species that ruled through service and superior values. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, they had liberated it. And in doing so, they had proven that sometimes the most primitive emotions, compassion, justice, and the refusal to abandon those who cannot protect themselves, were more powerful than all the ancient wisdom and advanced technology in the universe. The age of the Council was over. The age of humanity had begun.